Good day, everyone. So our discussion for today is about the percentile and the t-distribution. So what about the percentile? Okay? It has been discussed on your grade 10 and their uses. Okay? These were also discussed that percentile are identifier of the student's performance in comparison to the performance of the whole class. Okay? So ang ginagamit natin to measure your performance in your class is the use of the percentile. Okay? So, yung mga grades ninyo is in percentage, di ba? So, nakikita nyo naman na if ever naka-perfect kayo sa inyong exam, so makikita nyo, you will have a 100%. Okay? So, let's move on with the t-distribution. Okay, the t-distribution, also called the student's t-distribution. It is a family of distribution that look almost identical to the normal distribution curve, only a bit shorter and stouter. Okay, the t-distribution is used instead of the normal distribution when you have small samples. Okay, the larger the sample size, the more the t-distribution looks like the normal distribution. In fact, the sample size larger than 20, okay, the distribution is almost exactly like the normal distribution. Okay, the t-distribution is similar to the normal distribution. So here are the following points kung paano naging pareho sila or saan sila nagkapareho. Okay? Like the normal distribution, the t-distribution has a smooth shape. Okay? So hindi siya nagbabago ng kumbaga hindi siya yung parang katulad ng line graph na may bababa, may tataas, bababa ulit, tataas ulit. So hindi ganoon. Okay? Smooth ang t-distribution para siyang normal curve. Okay? So kung ang normal distribution ay bell shape, ang t-distribution ay ganun din. Okay? Like the normal distribution, the t-distribution is symmetric. Okay? If you think about folding it in half, at the mean, each side will be the same. So, pag sinabi natin symmetric, okay, pagdating dito sa mean o dun sa pinaka-middle ng inyong curve, okay, kapag hinati natin yan sa gitna, sa pinaka-gitna, yung mean, okay, ibig sabihin daw, yung left side at saka yung right side ay pareho ng sukat. Okay? Kasi sila ay symmetric. Okay? So, ganyan din yung property ng normal distribution. Okay? They are symmetric. Like the standard normal distribution or the z-distribution, the t-distribution has a mean of 0. Okay? Or the z-score. Okay? Yung mean, okay, yung z-score ng mean is 0. Okay? The normal distribution assumes that the population standard deviation is known, while the t-distribution does not make this assumption. Okay? So, if hindi available ang standard deviation, okay, so, meron tayong ginagamit na standard deviation of the sample size. Okay? Then, the t-distribution is defined by the degrees of freedom. Okay? These are related to the sample size. So, we uses degrees of freedom sa t-distribution. Okay? Sa z-distribution, wala tayong degrees of freedom. Okay? The t-distribution is most useful for small sample sizes. So, nabanggit na natin to kanina. Okay? Mas useful siya kapag ang sample size ay small. Okay? When the population standard deviation is not known or both. Okay? As the sample size increases, the t-distribution becomes more similar to a normal distribution. Okay? So, dahil nga, pag lumalaki na siya, yung sample size, mas nakikita natin na similar na siya sa normal distribution. Okay? Actually, almost similar naman talaga yung kanilang mga properties. Okay? Using the t-table shown on the next page, we can able to identify the t-value of a certain data. So, let us have an example. So, before that, let us be familiar with first the following words, the degrees of freedom and the percentile. Okay? So yung degrees of freedom, this refers to the maximum number of logically independent values which may vary in the data sample. Okay? So ito yung degrees of freedom na nandito siya sa left side. And percentile sa measure of possession with data divided in 200 parts. Okay? So ito yung percentile. Okay? Kumbaga yung percentage natin, ito siya. Okay? So ito yung table. Next, let us have an example. Okay? Identify the t-value whose number of samples, or n is equals to 7, has an area of equal to 0.05. Okay? Identify daw natin yung t-value. Okay? Ano yung t-value or yung t-score? Yan. Ano yung t-score natin or yung t-value? Okay? So, yan. We have a sample size 7 and the area of 0.05. Okay? So, let us have number 1. To identify the t-value, okay, we have to first get the degrees of freedom. To get the degrees of freedom, we have this formula. Degrees of freedom is equals to n minus 1. Okay? So, n is 7 minus 1, we have the degrees of freedom of 6. So, from the table, ito yung table na to, yung galing sa taas yan. Same table lang. Ito rin yan. Okay? So, tingnan natin yung degrees of freedom, which is 6. So, ito, degrees of freedom, which is 6. And the percentile of, yun, ano sabi? 0.05. Okay. So, 0.05, ito yung degrees of freedom of 6. So, pag babanggain natin sila, so, yung maging corner niya, ito. So, this will be the t-value. T-value is 1.943. Okay? Next example. Find the t-value whose degrees of freedom is 20 and has an area of 0.01. Okay? So, dito sa number 2, given na yung degrees of freedom which is 20. And then, hanapin natin yung area of 0.01. Okay, so ito yon, degrees of freedom, 20. Again, degrees of freedom na yung binigay at hindi sample size. Okay? So, most probably, kung tatanong naman natin sa atin kung ano yung sample size, so we will assume that it is 21 because sample size minus 1 is the degrees of freedom, which is here is 20. Okay? So, 0.01 yung ating percentile, and then 20 degrees of freedom. So, pagbabanggain natin, we have 2.528, which is our t-value. Okay? Number 3. Identify the t-value of the following percentile given the number of samples. Okay? So, letter A, ang number of samples ay 30. Okay? And the percentile is 95%. So, out of 100%, okay? So, 95% yung kanyang percentile. Okay? It only means na meron tayong significant level of 5%. Okay? Let us see. Okay? So, yan. Letter A. 95 percentile. 95th percentile is the number where 95% of values lie below is 5%. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, meron pang 5% na significant level. Okay? So, you want the right tail area to be 0.05. Move across the row and find the column for 0.05 and then locate the t-value using n is equals to 30 or the degrees of freedom of 29. Degrees of freedom, 30 minus 1 is 29. And then we have the 0.05 na significant level. Okay. So, we have here 29 degrees of freedom and then 0.05 na significant level or yung percentile. And then we have here 1.699. Okay. So, that is the t-value. Number 3, letter B, we have 90th percentile and n is equal to 20. So, n is equal to 20, degrees of freedom is 19. Okay? Sa 90th percentile, out of 100, meron tayong 10 na significant level. So, 10%, okay, or 0.19. 1. Okay? 0.1, yan. The 90th percentile is the number where 90% of values lie below it is 10%. Okay? So, you want the right tail area to be 0.01 or 0.1. Move across the row, find the column for 0.05, and then locate the t-value, n is equals to 20. This is column 4.1. It should be 0.1. Yeah, should 0.1. And then we have the 19 degrees of freedom. So, our t-value is 1.328. Okay. So, that's it for this module. We move on with the next module. Okay. So we have here the length of confidence interval and the appropriate sample size. So we will be discussing the confidence level, okay, or length of the confidence interval. Okay. Okay, let us first define what is a confidence interval. In statistics, this refers to the probability that a population parameter will fall between the set of values for a certain proportion of times. Confidence interval measures the degree of uncertainty or certainty in a sample method. Again, confidence intervals measure the degree of uncertainty or certainty in a sampling method. Okay? They can take any number of probability limits, with the most common being a 95% or 99% confidence level. Okay? Narrowness of the interval, this pertains to a small width in relation to the length of the interval. Okay? So, confidence level, this refers to absolute difference between the upper limit and the lower limit. Again, difference between the upper limit and the lower limit. So, LCI, this is the length of confidence interval. UCL, upper limit. Okay, lower limit, LCL. Okay, so as you can see, here is the formula to find the length of confidence interval. UCL minus LCL. Example, find the length of the confidence interval from 0.275, okay, less than the P or the proportion, or less than 0.360. Okay? First, we have the first step, determine the given. Okay? UCL is 3.65. So, ito yung upper limit. Okay? So, kung makikita natin, syempre, siya yung nasa mas mataas na part ng interval. Dahil ito ay 0.360, mas mataas kaysa sa 0.275. So, kung ito yung upper limit, it only means that this one is the lower limit, which is 2.75. Use the formula for the length of confidence interval. The LCI is equals to UCL minus LCL. Okay, so deduct lang natin itong 275 kay 360. So we have an LCI of 0.085. So thus the length of confidence is 0.085. Number 2, find the length of the confidence interval whereby the upper limit is 0.085, lower confidence limit 0.526. Okay, so again, we have this solution. LCI is equals to UCL minus LCL. So LCI will be 0.805 minus 0.526 is equals to 0.279. Okay, thus the length of the confidence interval is equals to 0.279. Okay, try this later. Okay. Okay, so what is it? The formula for the interval estimate of the population mean with known variance is, okay, so ito yun. Okay, this is the population mean. Okay, and here is the okay, so here is the sample mean and the population mean. Okay, so sample mean minus z sub a over 2 multiplied by the standard deviation over the square root of n, less than the population mean, n is less than the sample mean minus the z sub a over 2 multiplied by the standard deviation over the square root of n. Okay, so ito yung formula na yan. So kung titignan mo, itong formula na to is similar dito sa formula na yan. Okay? The formula to find the length of the confidence interval is equals to 2 multiplied by z sub a over 2 times standard deviation over the square root of n, whereby z sub a over 2 is the z value, and this symbol is for the standard deviation, and n is for the sample size. Find the length of the confidence interval given the following data. So, standard deviation is 0.3, n is equals to 70, confidence level is 95%. First step, determine the given. So, given natin, again, standard deviation is 0.3, n is equals to 70, confidence level is 95%. Determine the confidence coefficient. Okay? So, just deduct 95% from 100%. So, you will have 0.05. Here it is. And then divide it by 2 kasi we have a curve, and the curve has 2 tail. So, divide natin sa 2 kasi ito ay the total area kung saan yung nasa dulo ng dalawang tail. Okay? So, i-divide natin to para makuha natin yung magkabilang dulo ng tail. Kaya natin dinidivide sa 2. So, yung isang tail, pag dinivide natin sa 2 is 0.025 yung kanyang area. Yung kabilang tail ay ganito rin. Okay? So, after that, subtract natin 0.5y kasi yung curve natin ay half lang ng curve. We all know that area under the curve is equal to 1. And if we cut it in half, so magiging 0.5 na lang siya. Kasi 1 divided by 2 is 0.5. Kasi half na lang siya. So, 0.5 minus 0.25. Ito yung dulo ng isang tail. Diba? Ito yung kalahati ng dulo ng tail na kinuha natin. Okay, so, syempre, dahil half lang ng curve, so 0.25 lang yung ibabawas natin. So, we have 0.475. Okay? So, 0.475, hahanapin natin ngayon sa table kung ano ngayon yung z-score niya. So, hanapin natin sa table ng z distribution doon sa half lang ng curve ng table. So, we have 0.475. That would be 1.96. So, kung hahanapin ninyo sa table, ito yung makukuha nyo na score o z-score na makikita nyo doon sa table. 1.96. So, nakuha na natin yung value ng z sub a over 2, which is 1.96. Okay? Next step is to substitute the values in the formula and then compute. Okay. So, ito yung formula. Yan, ito yun. Nakuha natin yung formula. So, we have 2 multiplied by z sub a over 2 times the standard deviation over the square root of n. Okay, substitute lang natin 2. And then z sub a over 2, we have 1.96. So, 1.96. Standard deviation, which is 0.3. And the square root of n is 70. Okay, so square root of 70. Okay, solve lang the formula. Okay, multiply 1.96 to 2 and then multiply the answer 2.3. And then you will have 1.176 over the square root of 70. Okay? So, kuhanin mo muna yung square root of 70 and then divide it by 1.76 divided by the answer here. And then you will have an LCI of 0.1460, which is the length of confidence interval. Okay? So, we have 0.1406. Okay? So, ito naman yung sample ng table. Dito, yan, yung table. Kung paano nakuha itong 1.96. Okay? Diba ang nakuha natin ay 0.470. Ito to. 0.4750. 0.4750. Okay? So, kuhanin natin yung z-score niya. Okay? So, ito, dito, 1.9 plus yung 0.06, we have 1.96. Kaya ito ay 1.96. So, yun yung kanyang z-score. Okay? But what if the sample size is less than 30? So, ano yung gagamitin natin? Okay, we will be using the t-table or the t-distribution. Okay? So, here is the formula similar to the formula given above. Okay? But, we uses the standard normal table or yung z-table na ginagamit natin or yung z-distribution. While here, ang gagamitin natin ay yung t-table. Yan. Kasi para makuha natin yung t-value. Okay? Let us have this example. Find the length of the confidence interval given the following data. Okay? So, hindi given yung standard deviation. Ang given ay yung sample standard deviation or standard deviation of the sample size, which is 6.5. And n is equals to 15. The confidence level is 99%. Let us have these steps. Determine the given. So, yung sample standard deviation is 6.5. N is 15. Confidence level is 99%. Find the degrees of freedom. So, degrees of freedom is n minus 1. So, degrees of freedom, n is 15 minus 1. So, we have 14. Okay? So, the degrees of freedom is 14. Find the area in 1 minus a to 100% confidence level. Then, find t sub a over 2. Okay? So, pagkuha natin ang area nito, so 100 minus 99, so alam natin na iyon ay 0.01. Okay? So, 0.01, dahil dalawa ang tail, divide natin siya by 2. So area, divide by 2, we have 0.005. Okay? Ito na yung A over 2 natin. Okay? Hence, using the t-distribution critical values, t-table, the degrees of freedom 14, and ito yung percentile natin na 0.005 is shown below. So, nandito daw sa baba. Okay? So, 0.005, ito siya, and the degrees of freedom of 14. Okay, here it is. So, pagbanggain lang natin yan, tsaka yan, so makukuha natin is 2.977. Ito siya. Yan. 2.977. So, pakikita natin yan, basta alam na natin kung ano yung area. Half, syempre, dahil dalawa yung tail yan. At half lang yung nasa table. Okay? So, 0.005 yung ating percentile. And then, degrees of freedom is 14. Kaya nakuha natin yung 2.977. Next, substitute the value in the formula and compute. Substitute natin yung nakuha natin na value dito sa formula. So, formula natin 2 times t sub a over 2. Okay. T sub a over 2 is equals to 2.977. Yung nakuha natin kanina. And then, multiplied by 2. And then, again, multiplied by 6.5, which is yung S. Yung S. Yung. Which is 6.5. And N na standard, N na sample size, which is 15. Okay. Solve this one, and then you will have LCI is equals to 9.99. Okay? That is the length of the confidence interval. Okay? So, try this later. Deriving the formula for a sample size. Okay? In deriving the formula for the sample size, there are two things to remember. When we decide the quality of the sample size that we need, confidence and the narrowness of the interval. Okay? The confidence interval describes the uncertainty inherent in the estimate and describes a range of values within which we can be reasonably sure that the true effect actually lies. Okay? So, this is describing the uncertainty or certainty inherent in the estimates and describes a range of values. Okay? So, narrowness of the interval pertains to a small width in relation to the length of the confidence interval. Kapag sinabing narrow, maiksi lang yung range niya. Confidence interval is relatively narrow. Example, 0.7 to 0.80. So, maliit lang yung interval na yan. The effect size is known precisely if the interval is wider. Okay, so kapag wider, kung pwede, ito yung example mo, 0.6 to 0.93. Ibig sabihin, mas malaki yung shape, mas malaki yung haba ng range. Kasi wider yung uh, ito, yung interval or yung range. Okay? The uncertainty is greater, although there are many still be enough precision to make decision about the utility of the intervention. Intervals are very wide. Okay, indicate that we have little knowledge about the fact that further information is needed. Okay, so here's the formula for the margin of error. Ito rin yung sinasabi sa niya, significant level or the margin of error. Okay, the study of the derivation of the computing formula for determining minimum sample size when a sample distribution mean. Discuss the elements of the formula. Solve for n which a sample size needed is estimating a population mean. So, yeah. So, check nyo yung formula. This is similar to the formula that we have been using a while ago. So, same lang. This is a b over 2 multiplied by the standard deviation over the square root of n. So, solve nyo lang yung example na yan. Let us have this formula in determining the minimum sample size when we are estimating a population mean. So, paano mo malalaman kung gaano kalaki yung sample size na kailangan mo? So, you will have to use this formula para ma-identify mo gaano nga ba karami yung sample size na kailangan. Okay? Whereby the z sub a over 2 is the z value, standard deviation, the number of samples, and the margin of error. Okay? Since the value of the standard deviation is normally unknown, it can be estimated by the standard deviation from a prior sample. Okay, so kapag unknown ang standard deviation, pwede mong gamitin yung standard deviation ng prior sample. Okay? Alternatively, we may approximate the range of our observation in the population and make a conservation estimate of is equal to R over 4. Okay? Let us have this example. Feeding program. In a certain barangay, Mario wants to estimate the mean weight in kilograms of all 7-year-old children to be included in the feeding program. He wants to be 99% confident that the estimate of mean is accurate 0.06 kilogram. Okay? Suppose from a previous study, the standard deviation of the weight of the target population was 0.5 kilogram. What should be the same sample size be? Okay? The praised accurate to with 0.06 kilogram, a narrowed width of the confidence interval, thus the decide error is 0.06 kilogram. So, ito na yung gagamitin nating error and the population standard deviation would be 0.5 kilogram. Okay, first determine the given 99% confidence level. We have an error of 0.06 and a standard deviation of 0.05. Determine the confidence level. We have A is equals to 100 minus 99%. So, you will have 1%. And then, division, property of equity. So, divide lang natin because yung nakuha natin na 0.01 ay included na yung kabilang tail. So, kailangan natin i-divide siya para yung isang tail lang yung ating masukat. Okay? So, nakuha mo na yung, hinati mo na siya kasi dalawa yung kanyang tail end. So, ibig sabihin, ito ay doon sa isang tail end. Okay? So, after mo makuha yung isang tail end, ay kukuhanin mo naman yung half ng curve. Okay? Doon mo lang kinuha yung half ng tail, yung end ng tail. Okay? Pero yung overall ay kailangan mo pa rin makuha dito. Okay? So, yung half ng curve is 0.5, i-minus natin yung nakuha natin sa dulo ng tail, which is 0.05. Okay, so 0.5 minus 0.005, you have 0.495. Okay? So, kung check natin sa ating Z table, okay, hindi siya 1.96. Siya ay 2.57 to be exact. This should be 2.67. These are typo error. So, yan. Erase nyo na lang to. Okay? Or, hindi nyo naman pwedeng sulatan yung mga module nyo. So, wag nyo na lang tong, hindi ito ang tamang sagot dito ha. Ang tamang sagot dito ay 2.57. Okay? Next step is to substitute the values in the formula and then compute. Okay, substitute the value to this formula. So 2.58 for z sub a over 2. Okay, and then multiply by standard deviation, which is 0.5. Okay, and then divided by the error, which is 0.06. Okay, so you will have 21.5 raised to 2. Okay? So, after raising it to 2, you will have 462.25. So, kung ino-round off mo ito, okay, ito ay 462. Okay? Hindi siya 463. Okay? So, bakit kaya 463 yung ginawa ng researcher? Okay? Sa tingin ko, naging conservative siya, okay, sa pagpili ng kanyang sample. Okay? So, imbis na yung 0.25 ay ialis niya, kaya siya naging conservative, nang hinayang siya dito sa 0.25. Kaya sinama pa rin niya dito sa 463 si 0.25. Pero in reality, we will only use 462. Okay? So, that's it for today. This is another example similar to what we have just discussed. Okay, so yun. Sasagutan nyo yung mga next exercises. What's more, what I have learned, these are just reflection, what I can do, and the assessment. So, hindi nyo na sasagutan yung additional activities. Hindi na to sasagutan. Hanggang dito lang sa assessment. Okay, so that's it for today. Okay, thank you and have a nice day. Bye.